Kevin Scholl. He is the Director of Marketing Technology at the Red Roof Inn, and he is all about thinking out of the box because most hospitality organizations, they've always been trying to engage or connect with consumers at the front desk through voice, or engage with voice at the front desk. Whereas Kevin decided to look at it a little bit more strategically. So he now is connecting with consumers via Alexa at their homes and in their cars. And he's going to share with us how he does that. And they're really pretty proud of that because they are the only hospitality brand currently doing that. So I want to welcome Kevin Scholl. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello.
Hello.
Everybody can hear me. Thank you for that. So I hopefully won't disappoint everybody for the next 15 minutes because I don't have a slide deck that I'm going to show you. The point of why we're using voice is to engage in conversation with our guests. So I'm just going to engage in conversation for the next 15 minutes. And how I want to do that is to give you just a quick story on how we ended up in voice and why it made sense for us as a brand to go after it. And hopefully part of what you'll experience is what I really want to get into is why we got into voice. And honestly, if you're thinking about getting into voice, to remove some of the potential barriers that you may think you have. And after you hear my story, hopefully you can walk away with that. So for Red Roof as a brand, we're a hotel company. We deal with properties and we deal with guests. When you looked at voice a couple of years ago, it was one of those opportunities for us to say, how are we engaging with our guests? We engage with our guests via a website. And that has gone through evolution and change. And then we started to see that mobile applications were becoming a thing, mobile websites, mobile first design. These were all the kind of the areas that we were looking at building out how we communicate with our guests. And then this thing called voice came along. So 2 years ago, we were looking at the marketplace. We were looking at what other hospitality brands were doing. Everybody was talking about voice. This idea that voice was going to be the next kind of frontier for marketers. How do we prepare for voice? But the challenge that the hospitality industry faced was, how do we engage with voice in the room? And that's really what everybody focused on. It was, how do we create a voice activity that a guest would feel comfortable with? There's privacy concerns. How does it make sense from the property level for the front desk to be able to engage with it? So this was really the quandary that everybody was trying to solve. And if you asked any hotelier, any person working in marketing or technology in the hotel space, they would all tell you that they are working on voice and they're trying to figure out how to crack it. So Red Roof stepped back and said, we're interested in voice. We like the idea of it, but we're just not sure how we fit into that space. And the short version of how we got to where we are is that I was at a dinner party and there were two guests who were having a discussion. It was a very heated discussion. And the heated discussion was Thanos also in Goonies? For those of you who know these pop culture references, yay. And it was one of those opportunities where I saw somebody who was having this conversation, and there was that immediacy of a stare down for which person was going to get the right answer. And one of the guests went to grab her purse and get her phone out of her purse so she could Google the answer to the question. And the other person who was actually hosting the party just said, Alexa, who played Thanos and who is in the Goonies? And Alexa said, oh, here's the answer. So I had this interesting moment of recognition that we are going to get to a point where we're not even having to pull out our phones to get the information that we want. And it was also somebody in their home who was using the voice device for something other than ordering paper towels through Amazon. So that led me to have a conversation with our brand to say, is there opportunity for us if we want to get into voice? Why are we so focused on figuring out how to fit voice into a hotel room where it might not have a natural fit, but leverage the fact that we've got all of these guests who already have these voices enabled devices in their homes. And it also, as a brand, allowed us to open a new channel of opportunity to have conversation with our guests. We communicate with our guests when they're thinking about coming. They come to the website and they research. We communicate with them when they're on property, and then we do some emailing after the stay. And it's just opened up another opportunity for us to leverage, at the time, the 40 million people who had Alexa-enabled devices already in their home. And you were already seeing a conversation started up How do we put this in the car? You have major auto manufacturers who are putting up Alexa-enabled radios in cars. Amazon rolled out a thing called the Echo Car. So it just made sense for us to stop trying to figure out to solve this problem that everybody else was trying to solve, and look at it from a different angle and a different perspective, and recognize that we didn't have to worry about any infrastructure. All we had to do was build the skill, because we were leveraging this communication in home and in car where they already had that infrastructure built. So it was an interesting conversation for us, because again, it goes to one of those, if you're talking to your leadership, if you're talking to their executives and you talk about voice, you talk about technology, the first thing they say is, how much is this going to cost us? It's going to need program, it's going to need all of these things in order to make it work. More importantly, do our guests even care? Are we at a point where it's a natural instinct for us to use voice? Not yet. I think we're getting there. So what I did, just to test case it out, was to say, what would a Red Roof in-home voice interaction look like? The easiest thing for us to do is what are people coming to Red Roof for today when they're in home? And we figured out that they either want to book or they want to ask a question. They want to know what our pet policy is. They want to know what the loyalty program is. They want to know if there's a property nearby. So what this allowed us to do was build a very simple, and I programmed it myself, skill for our version 1 that was just taking kind of the top 50 frequently asked questions we got on the website or in our contact center and building an Alexa skill around them. So it was just as simple as taking data that we already had, things that we already knew the answers to, building those into an Alexa skill, and then launching it into the Alexa skill store, and then seeing what happened. And what happened for us was that the thing that we noticed, the hardest part for us to get people engaged, was that it's not a natural instinct for a lot of people right now to use Alexa for things other than dealing directly with Amazon. So the largest lift for us as a brand, and for anybody who's trying to get into voice, isn't necessarily building the skill. It's training your consumers, educating your customer base that you have a skill. More importantly, how do I get that skill? So where we leaned in from a marketing perspective was, yes, we marketed that we have the skill, but the marketing was more centered around an education of, here's how you get the skill and here's what you can do with the skill. And after about a month of promoting that, we started to see that people were engaging. We got about 14,000 people a month who were coming onto the skill and asking these very basic questions. When we decided that this did make sense, this is something that is working, our guests are engaging, we were getting more engagement, but we also knew that we would have a finite kind of level of, if this is all they can do, just like with the mobile application, it's fun for the first couple of times and then it becomes repetitive, or they want it to do other things. What that allowed us to do was to sit down and say, we've proved out that it works. It was very little expense for us to prove that out. We didn't have any infrastructure cost. I built it myself. Now that we've done this, and I can prove to you that our guest will be engaged with it, and the penetration of the voice devices is just becoming more and more, how do we take it to the next level? So that's where we ended up where we are today. So we found a great partner who develops voice skill, and we sat down with them and said, here's what we've done, here's what we want this to do. We created a strategy around not just we've built the skill and let's move on to the next thing. We are managing our voice skill just like any other channel. We're going to constantly update it. We are going to look at the data. We are going to see the engagement. And for us, we know that we can interact with the guests through voice to answer those questions, to have those kind of inspirational moments when they're looking for something to do. The ultimate goal for the brand is to be able to book. So everything that we're doing is working towards a strategy of getting to a point where I can say, hey, Alexa, ask Red Roof if they have a hotel near me. Alexa says, yes, we do. Would you like to book? Yes, I would. So we're really looking at how do we roll out an iterative kind of development of the skill. So right now, we're really kind of, my version was really 0.5. So we're kind of on our version 1 that we worked on and rolled out last year has all of those questions in there. It has better language processing, better branching through keeping you engaged with the skill, more information about our brand, about our properties, about our loyalty program. But what we also did that's a lot of fun is we built some gaming in there. So we looked at, we want this to be something that people are using in the car, they're using in their home. How can we do something fun in the car? So we built an interactive role-playing game where you take a spaceship and you get to fly around the galaxy while you're driving around in the car, and you get to go on missions. There's some trivia, there's some quiz, and the goal for that is we're going to continue to develop that as well, so that we're giving people this kind of idea of not only is it fun to engage with the app based upon consumer-based decisions on how much is a red roof, where is the red roof, but we also give them something else to do while they're traveling, give them something to interact with us as a brand so that they can have fun with us, they can stay engaged with us, even if they aren't on their way to a red roof property. So that is kind of where we got today. What that did from not only the voice stuff, but it also started us down a path of understanding and recognizing that we have to change our content, not just for voice in terms of the direct skills that we're building, but we think that voice is going to be the next mobile. It's going to be a thing. We're not quite there yet, but there will become a point when we stop pulling out our tablets and our smartphones. We just start asking questions into the air and getting responses. So we looked at how does our content on the website, is it ready for voice search? So if I'm doing voice searches through Google, through Siri, how does our content respond to that? So that led us down a path of recognizing that not only do we have to prepare our web content for the visual medium of the web, but we have to prepare it for voice. So that allowed us to be out in front of our competitors because they're still trying to figure out how to put a Alexa in the hotel room, to not only have that voice skill, get that data, get that engagement, begin to train our customers that we have a voice skill, but then on the back end of our website and how we handle the content and our search strategy for web and for mobile and for app is now all in line with how do we prepare that content for voice. So at the end of the day, it became a huge project that started with just simply the initial kind of conversation of should we be in voice, and some hesitation. That's certainly an honest answer. Was there hesitation from the brand's part to want to get into voice? Because there's still a lot of questions about, well, what's the ROI? How do we convert? When we look at it now, what is our ROI on voice? I don't have a good answer for you because we don't have a pathing that leads me to, because I use the voice skill, I booked a hotel room. That's the ultimate goal. What I consider the ROI on is that it's the idea of engagement. So being a digital marketer, that as much opportunity as I can have to keep people engaged with the brand, however we do that, that's going to lead us to hopefully be a top of mind, get us to a point where, because they interacted with the skill, when they do go online, when they do download the mobile app, like, oh, I like Red Roof, they have this fun skill, I played their spaceship game, I'm going to book with them. But that we will get to an inevitable point where I can point to a direct, here is the conversion of voice skill to bookings. And for us, it was to start with Alexa. I started with Alexa just selfishly because I had devices in my house that I could use. But the goal is that we are going to be focused on Google Voice as well. When we started down this path, it was a little bit different in kind of having to build out two kind of separate skills. And now we can just kind of take that singular code base and get it across both. So for us, voice is a thing. It's a big thing. It is a part of our strategy and continues to be a part of strategy. And for us, it will be another channel that we are adding through just kind of the rest of, until people stop using voice devices, we will have them. And I have a quick, if you'll allow me 2 more seconds. That's it, unmute her. We'll do a live test. People are probably thinking I'm nuts for doing a live test. Hopefully this works. Just to show you kind of some of the fun things we did with Alexa. Alexa, ask Red Roof if I can bring my dog.
Of course, our furry friends are always welcome at Red Roof. Except for elephants. We had a bad experience with elephants. I can answer questions about our general policies, our pet policy, deals, member rewards, or road games. What would you like to ask Red Roof?
Alexa, stop.
Thank you for using Red Roof Inn. Bye.
So when we built out Alexa, we didn't want to just give it kind of the generic FAQ stuff. We also gave her a personality. We wanted her to people to feel like they were talking to one of our guest relations people, one of our front desk people. So we programmed into our voice skill. You can ask her the same question 3 or 4 times and she will give you different answers. Sometimes she'll give you the very direct answer and sometimes she has fun and makes a joke about elephants. So for us, when we created the voice of Alexa, we wanted her to be a voice of our brand and we kind of programmed her as such. So that's my story.
Kevin, thank you. That's great. And I want to open it up now to anyone who has any questions. Please raise your hand and I can connect you. But actually, before I do want to let you know, people think that you have a great man cave.
So I would like to dispel a myth. This is not my man cave. This is my inner child cave.
Oh, okay. So either way, it's very cool. But I actually do have a quick question before we get to anyone else. You talked about you had to obviously update your website and make sure you were ready for it, but how else did you optimize voice? I mean, did this change your marketing strategy? Was this part, did it have in order to incorporate voice?
Yeah, I mean, it changed the idea of natural language. From a content perspective, you know, we are storytellers and we like to think that we were storytellers. So we had kind of an inherent natural language in how we were presenting content, but this really made us cognizant of understanding search from a perspective of natural language. And not only that, it's an interesting because it allows us to kind of capture what people are searching for on voice. And that allowed us to make an interpretation of if this is how they ask when they're talking, then this is how they're going to ask when they're typing. So it changed the kind of our strategy of thinking of here are the search terms and the keywords that we think people are typing and what data is showing us. But now we're actually engaging with this natural language component where we know for a fact how people talk about our brand when they ask us questions.
Okay, well, and actually I just noticed the time we are tight right now, but what's great is Kevin will be joining us again with the roundtable